Recording in progress. Okay, thank you. And so we're going to start with Ruben, and I'm going to pull up his notes so that that to help with his speech. Let's see if I can. Here we go.
Well, while you're doing that, I want to thank you, Diana, and everyone. Nice to see everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. And so I recently retired from the ANSA Community College, where I was an instructor in the Spanish department, what used to be Chicano studies, Latino studies, Latinx studies, and also the intercultural studies department. So what I'm going to do with a little outline, I'm kind of condensing what might have been 3 classes in my introduction to Latino studies, just to give you kind of a little overview of different topics, issues. And then I'll go ahead and insert myself in some of those just to share with you part of my history and you know, my personal take on this. Okay, so let's see.
Yeah, it's not letting me in for some reason.
Oh.
Here it comes. Do you have yours up, Ruben? Do you have your? Okay,
I have my handy. I'll go ahead and talk.
Let me make you co-host so that you can share your own document, because it's not letting me share it.
But then, you know, I may get stuck because I'm not very good at these things. So, you know what? Let me go ahead. I'll follow the little outline. I'll actually just read it because it's an outline. And then later, maybe, you know, you can share the document, or I can send. Yeah,
of course.
Forward the document to people. But so I entitled this "Notes and Outline on National Identities and Ethnic Groups" in quotations. And I see this as a conversation. So I'm in conversation with the San Mateo County Democracy for America. And it's kind of like a little case study, let's say. So I'm talking about Latino Americans, Latinx, Hispanics, etc., in the context of the United States, of course. We're talking about this country. And I have one sort of general introduction, which says the following. The dominant group, and in parentheses, numerically and or with political, economic, cultural power in any given society, establishes itself as the norm, quote unquote, and appropriates the national identity name. So I'm just going to list a few examples, won't go into great detail. For example, the Han in China, the Castilians in Spain, the mestizos in Mexico, the mulattos in the Dominican Republic, and white Europeans in the United States, right? So each of these groups, if you're part of this group, you are sort of the regular American, let's say, okay? And then everybody else is, so the second paragraph reads, the non-dominant groups become, quote unquote, ethnic or a nationality, even though the dominant group itself is not monolithic and it's also ethnic. And, you know, I can share with you, so I was born and raised in Mexico. I happened to study through a scholarship in France at the University of Montpellier in southern France. So I got to study sort of French society and experience it as a young student. You know, I've lived in Puerto Rico. I've traveled to different places, including China. And so, yeah, so this is the thing. We know that the word ethnic comes from a Greek word, ethnos, which simply means people, a people. That's all that ethnic means, a group of people that create a certain identity, right? So for example, so then I broke that section up into 4 parts. The first part talks about, let's say, talk about European Americans, which, this group, which is the largest group, it's also not monolithic. Why? Because we know through the census and people respond, some people identify as German Americans, Irish Americans, Italian Americans, etc. And then, of course, we have mixtures, and some people may say, well, I'm not really sure what my ancestry, but it's mixed with this and that. But so, we can consider that, yeah, well, those are ethnic groups, right? But you can sort of pass for a regular American. Then now let's look at the Latino Americans. Oh, by the way, under European Americans, in parentheses, I put white, because now, we do sort of consider everyone a European American as white. But if I'm sure some of the history that in the 1920s and 30s, even then, Italian Americans were not considered white. And rightly, because some of them actually didn't have white skin. In the Mediterranean, they have olive brown skin. But, once they made it into society, you might say, they were collapsed into being white. Okay. Now, when it comes to Latino Americans, or again, we can call them Hispanic Latinos. In parentheses, I put brown, black, white. I happen to have brown skin. Most people of Latin American descent have brown skin, but we have Latinos who have black skin, who are African descent. And we have, in Mexico, 10% of the population has white skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, right? They're still Mexicans, even though the majority of us have brown skin. So those categories don't really, they kind of break down when it comes to the Latino community in the United States. But then within the Latino Americans, one way that we can easily identify groups is by attaching, just like with the European Americans, a nation of origin at some point. So Mexican Americans, Cuban Americans, Salvadorian Americans, Peruvian Americans, right? So in some ways, that what used to be hyphenated, it's a very consistent way of really counting all the people in the US. Now, there's also mixtures, and there's some people who are also going to say, well, yeah, I'm mostly Mexican, descent, but I have Salvadorians, and then I have Guatemalans, and then I have that or whatever, or, Irish or anything like that. So then I won't go into what we could also do with Asian Americans or even African Americans. With every word, we could break it down that way. Now, ideally, we would all just be regular Americans, right? But that's the issue in every country. How do you create a national identity that really unifies people and, kind of brings us together in some way? So I would say that, the US, it's still a relatively young country. We know that. And we're still going through growing pains. And some of them are very nasty, as we see right now, that are even challenging the concept that we are all Americans, that we don't need to fit a religious group, or a skin color in order to feel like we all belong here and to do that. So that's part of the challenge, I think, for all of us to one, accept the diversity in real terms and build on what we have, in common. So now the next part, I was going to say on this question of like skin color, I can tell you, growing up in Mexico, so I'm a teenage immigrant. I came to California when I was about 13, 14. And so I went to school, ended up going to a night school, which was kind of like middle school, high school. In Mexico, after the revolution in the 1920s, the national government, once it came together, it was a very, it was like it was a civil war, just like the American Civil War. It tore the country apart, but it created a new society in which officially, I remember our teachers telling us, the national government in Mexico declared that the mixed people were the Mexicans. So if you were mixed Indian and Spanish, or like, these are the Mexicans. That was the first time in Mexican history through the colonial period that mixed people were not marginalized. In fact, we were now at the center of the national identity because we were now the majority. So by the 1920s and 30s, it is mixed people with brown skin who are the majority. Again, we still have the group that are primarily white-skinned descendants of Spanish, and then we have darker skin, indigenous people, and African descent, right? But so for me, for example, being in Mexico, I was part of sort of the majority. I was the normal person, right? I'm just an average Mexican. That I come to the US, all of a sudden I'm like, people are trying to figure out whether I'm Pakistani or I'm Indian or, or Italian or something. So then that is the other thing, that, our identities are fluid and flexible depending where we are and where people see us as fitting. But, I just wanted to say that part because to us, we were part of the sort of majority. Now, that didn't mean that mixed people had all the power in Mexico. It was still governed by primarily a white elite, which is not the case anymore, by the way. If you follow Mexico now, Mexico is going through what is being called the fourth transformation. By the way, half of all the people in the Mexican Congress are women by a constitutional amendment that the parties have to put forth at least half and elect half. The next little section, I talk about the use of terms, different terms that are used. Again, in my class, sometimes it would get to the point where after discussing all these different terms, you feel like, well, like, what's wrong with these Latinos? Why don't they just pick one name and stick to it? And are they all confused or, blah, blah, blah? It's like, no, it's because they don't have the political power, right? That's why, because, the European Americans have the majority of the power. So we're not going to be challenging what they say. If they say we're just regular Americans, they say, no, you're Irish American, or why do you call yourself this? But, these are some of the terms from way back, even pre-Columbian times. Anyway, there's a whole pre-Columbian period of history, but once the Spanish take over, we have these names that start showing up. So Spanish, mestizos, criollos, mexicanos, tejanos, which is a regional identity from Texas, Californios, etc. After the war with Mexico, US-Mexican War, other names become prominent, mostly by generation, like Mexican American during World War II. People who are born and raised in the US feel like they're American. They went to war, they're American, but they're also Mexican, right? Also, raza, which really means people, the people, not the race. Then Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, Latinx, all these different terms have their own history by generation. The latest one we've seen, of course, is Latinx. But, I'm from the generation where I was an immigrant, but the native-born young people during the 60s chose the name Chicanos, and that was what they called themselves. So I became a Chicano too. Why not? I'm a Mexicano, I'm a Chicano too. And it was very controversial, just in some ways like Latinx, because, not everyone agrees on all the terms. But what I always told my students is, whatever term you use, I will respect that. We should respect whatever one chooses to call oneself. But it's always important to try to understand the history of the terms, when they come about, why they come about, and that way we can all, learn more about each other. So I think my time is up. Thank you.
That was wonderful. You can see why I asked Ruben to go first because he is providing a history of, especially in recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month. It was important for us to have a little history about what that means and what the different terms are, and I really appreciate it. Roxana is going to go next, and then when we're through, we have lots of a bit of time for questions. Roxana, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Ruben, for that history of terminology. I really like what you said there. So thank you for just sharing that with us tonight. Well, my name is Roxana Enriquez. I believe I do not recognize a lot of you because I often sometimes attend and sometimes I do not because I'm like spread out right now, but I try my best to attend your meetings all the time. So I really appreciate you, Diana, for inviting me to this panel tonight. So a little bit about myself off the bat. I am 33 years old and I wanted to share that because I also see another young person in the room, maybe Jorge, he's another young person, and I consider myself from the new generation as well. So I am a proud native of Redwood City, and I was born and raised in Redwood City, having grown up in the vibrant neighborhood of North Fair Oaks. I am not sure if you are familiar with North Fair Oaks. And if any of the audience, but it has a history of Latinos, Hispanic, Mexican culture traditions, and it used to be very highly gang impacted back then. And I'll share a little bit about what led me to pretty much get involved in my community. And my education journey took me through Garfield, which was elementary, Garfield, Young Gill, Haas, and culminating into high school in the Sequoia District. So I'm not sure if you all know about Sequoia District. I went to some high schools there and I ended up graduating from Carmont High School in Belmont. As a single working mother to two incredible teenagers, my commitment to their education led me to explore various schooling options. So while studying administration of justice at the College of San Mateo, so I am a Bulldog CSM alumni. And later I transferred to San Jose State University, where I also major in justice studies and minor in public policy, public administration. As I was going through my undergrad, I searched for a quality education for my children. And I was aware of the challenges in the local school district, so I hesitated to enroll them in the schools in Redwood City because I knew that Redwood City school districts had like a bad reputation back then. However, the emergence of 3 new public charter schools in the community caught my attention. Their commitment to restorative practices resonated with my values, prompted me to engage in their events. So I attended a bunch of community meetings with the principal that were talking about, enroll your children at these schools. We do a lot of mindfulness, restorative practices, and that at that time, I felt that this is a good fit for my children. So my journey into community involvement truly took root when I started my first school site council meeting. So it was AKA PTA meeting. So it was a PTA gathering. So I became very involved in my kids' education. I was able to recognize the opportunity to contribute in that space. So I listened to parents' concerns about education issues. And it was at this point that I crossed paths with an organization called Innovate Public Schools, which is a nonprofit organization that empowers parents to advocate for high quality education. Little did I know that this marked the beginning of my venture into local government, into politics, without even knowing it at a young age in undergrad. So in 2016, I co-hosted community forums in East Palo Alto, delving into the plans of candidates for the 24th Assembly District regarding education and housing issues. So this was I co-host this event in East Palo Alto where I pretty much, organize a bunch of families and knock on many doors just to kind of learn about, what families or concerns are around education and housing. And Mark Berman was on that panel back then, and other elected officials. So my passion for education fueled my advocacy during school board meetings, city council meetings, realizing that teachers and schools alone couldn't address all the challenges by themselves, as we all know. So then I started to collaborate with community members like Connie Guerrero, and she's not here today. So I'm pretty sure you all probably have heard her name. And I was able to engage with her into voter registration and census outreach before COVID hit. So my involvement extended to initiatives such as the 2019 Community Collaboration for Children's Success. Some of you might be aware of that initiative in the county. So I was, a ambassador assisting with listening sessions in the North Fair Oaks community. And during those times, I was also part of the San Mateo County Probation Department steering committee, where a lot of head departments of different organizations, just shared out about what they're seeing in their programs and how can they collaborate together. And then I also was part of the Community College Bond Oversight Committee. I'm not sure if you guys pretty much knew or heard about the Community College Bond Oversight. So pretty much my role and other committees' roles was to provide oversight of construction and rehabilitation and whatnot. So I was there for a couple of months, and I met great elected officials and just a lot of community members who cared about the community colleges and just about the community. So I also served as a former juvenile justice commissioner about a year ago. And I was part of the Juvenile Justice Commission because I went to the juvenile justice system myself. And I decided to give back and provide my input, my experience in overseeing programs. And I currently teach with the Art of Yoga project. So I am also a yoga instructor, where I'm able to go inside mental health institutions and juvenile halls to teach art writing and yoga to young teenagers who are coming from communities like North Fair Oaks, East Palo Alto, Daly City, all those communities where we see the same trends over and over again. Recently, I was a City of Belmont Planning Commissioner, and so I understand how governing bodies work. And right now, I currently hold the position of being a vice chair of the first Redwood City, first ever Police Advisory Committee. So I was voted at large by the city council members in Redwood City to also contribute to this advisory to the chief of police. So we recently had listening sessions because there has been some shootings in some parks, and we want to make sure that families are coming out to speak about what's happening and how can we all work together to make public safety first and just make sure that we're all taking care of each other. So that's right now. I currently also work for Able Works, and it's a nonprofit organization located in Menlo Park and in the Central Valley. So I currently manage the financial education program in the Bay Area, where I partner with school districts and teachers with the econ and gov subjects, and I teach about systems and how finances all contribute and come together. So I teach basic skills about making sure that students are learning about the importance of saving, budgeting, learning about investments and whatnot, and on and on. So I'm very excited because this nonprofit, our focus is in economic justice. So we want to make sure that young adults, young children are living free from oppression and poverty. So during my graduate program at USF, my commitment to addressing complex public administration issues still persist. So I'm dedicating to contributing as a community member, recognizing, sorry, you are one person? Yes, I am one person. Recognizing the challenges faced by families. So especially those from marginalized neighborhoods like North Fair Oaks. So I just want to say that we all yearn for a sense of belonging, just like Ruben said. We all want a sense of belonging, opportunities, and a chance to thrive. While my journey continues to unfold, I'm exploring avenues where I can apply my skills and expertise to make lasting impact. And to the community, I urge openness to change and the willingness to just pivot when necessary. Sometimes we tend to want innovation, and sometimes we tend to not want to reinvent the wheel because sometimes it might not even be needed. So I just want to share that our leaders are among us, and engaging with us is crucial as the new generation is paying attention, like myself. Let us be part of something we deeply care about by listening to each other's stories with humility, and that sometimes means allowing us to lead the way. So that's all I wanted to share with you, but I'm happy to take questions. I could sit here all night and just share about my experience as a young adult until my undergrad years. So I'm still out there. You might be seeing my face in different articles or something. It's because I do a little bit of everything. I wear many hats, and I just try to leave, I try my best to give back to the community when I can. And I spend most of my time, honestly, listening to city council meetings and listening to school board meetings and just paying attention to politics. I really enjoy it. And my children are just watching me, and, I am just leaving a legacy to them as well at a young age. So thank you. And I'll pass it over to Diana.
I'm exhausted. I think I'll go take a nap now. So thank you so much, Roxana. And so you can all see what I was talking about, a rising star in Roxana. And we will be seeing a lot of her in the future. So our Victoria is next. And I have Victoria's PowerPoint, but I just made you host. So I'm co-host. So I'm hoping that you can share it. You might have better luck than I had with Ruben's.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see it?
It's coming up.
Okay. How about now? How do I get? Okay. Oh, what do I do now? Okay. So do I get rid of the
Yeah. So now, okay.
Do I get out of, do I go on to
slideshow? See where it says slideshow up the top?
Slideshow.
Up to the right?
Yes. Okay, hold on a second here. Slideshow. Yes, to the
from beginning over to the right?
I'm looking at the right.
Okay, so that was correct. And now take your cursor over to the right where it says from the beginning. I mean, left. Sorry, the other right. Yeah, left.
Here.
There it is. Perfect.
Oh, all right. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay. Absolutely. It's great.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on here and to share my journey, share my story. And it's nice to be with all of you. And thank you. Okay, so I grew up in Salinas, and Salinas is the salad bowl capital of the world, because they grow the abundance of lettuce, different vegetables, and so on and so forth. And anyway, so I'm from there. I was born and raised there. And in the beginning, so I worked in the agricultural fields with my parents. And that's me with the braids here, cutting lettuce. So so I did that work. And so at a young, it was a great experience because I got to learn about the tremendous health issues and social inequalities, and especially those relating to the working conditions and the use of pesticides. and such as crop dusters, spraying pesticides while we were working. And so, and then also to law enforcement abuses too. When the INS, back then it was called the INS, now it's called ICE, they would come and they only ask us brown people for our cards. And I remember I would ask them, why are you only asking us? Why don't you ask the other people? And there was no answer. And so I said, okay, I got it. I get it. So, so as a young age, I knew that things were not right. And so from early on, my life purpose was to help create a socially responsible world and to help raise public awareness through the use of press, the media. And not only about the social inequities, but also too about our history, that we have history here in the U.S. as Latinos, Mexicanos, and that they were here before it was the U.S. And so, and that we are the professors and the journalists and the doctors and so on and so forth. So I then went to, okay, where am I? Yes, I went to University of San Francisco, and I graduated communications, the mass media, emphasis in media law. And I then worked at a news station. I worked at the Center for Investigative Reporting. I was part of a team that won a National News Emmy. And also, too, I worked at ABC7. Also worked at CBS 13 in Sacramento. I loved it. It was very stimulating for me because I got to cover stories of social impact. And let's see what else. Yes. Oh, yeah. I also, I started my career, actually, my news career at Stanford University as a news assistant. So it was really good there. I got a lot of great experience. Then I went on to, okay, let's see here. Then I went from TV news to public relations and in high tech. And it was excellent. It was a great opportunity too. I got to work on innovative campaigns. The emerging technology was happening. Then we got laid off because of the .com bust. Remember all that? So, in any case, I couldn't find a job. I was looking and looking, and I would only get freelancing. I would help large PR firms get new clients, and they would just not, I wasn't able to work with them. So I felt used. So what I did, I created my own company. So I had to reinvent who I am. I created a new area of PR, multicultural PR. So I reshaped the business landscape through innovative ideas. So I had to put together the package of who I am. I'm Mexican American, I'm a farm worker, I'm a writer, a journalist, PR expert, and I'm a passionate advocate. That's what I did. And so I'm very active member with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, Public Relations Society of America, Society of Professional Journalists. It's important to stay on top of the game. I'm always taking classes, writing classes, see how the press, how they like to receive the material. And yes, so that is important. Okay, next here. So I'm very much into causes, into being an advocate. So I was nominated in 2017 from a colleague of mine at ABC7, who I used to work with, as Women of the Year candidate for LLS, Leukemia Lymphoma Society in San Francisco. So it was a 10-week fundraising campaign for cancer research and patient care. So since pesticide exposure killed my dad. I mean, he died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma linked to pesticide exposure. I focused my campaign on farm workers exposed to pesticides linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I did my research, and the CDC said it is linked. So that's why I did it also too. And so my dad, as I mentioned, he worked in the field for 40 years and he fought so hard. I love my dad. I miss him every day. And I just said, I need to raise awareness on this. And what a great opportunity to be, to work with the lymphoma, the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and to raise awareness there, because it's a different type of platform, different audiences. And it was important to raise awareness that it doesn't only happen to farm workers, but also to consumers, to the farm owners, getting exposed to these deadly poison, excuse me here. So that's what I did. And my dad's here with his sisters, my aunts, who would come to see him because he was not doing so well. But anyway, and then to get my message out, it was, since I'm a journalist, will always be a journalist. I'm in communications, and so it was important for me to get, to write an op-ed in the Chronicle. I got highlighted here in Pacifica magazine, speaking up, giving voice to farm workers. I did all that, and then also too, they ABC7 featured me for Hispanic Heritage Month. It's all good. And then I also wrote some more op-eds. Apple Bay Review, Tecolote newspaper, Visión Hispana. And then also too, I went on television in Spanish and English. My friend Damien Trujillo, he's actually from the Salinas Valley too. So he definitely understands. And he says, come on over and let's, talk about this campaign that you're doing, that you're working on to raise awareness. And then, so the result of this, because of all the, the press coverage I was getting, I was, raising awareness. Someone, an anonymous person, funded patient care outreach, access outreach, to this program. And I was so, they contacted me, LLS contacted me and said, hey, Victoria, there's someone in Santa Rosa who wants to donate some money to, to our work. I said, yes, that's great. I'm excited. And that's what it's all about. Okay. So, and then, oh yes, I'm involved with the healthcare at San Mateo County, Healthcare for the Homeless and Farm Worker Program. I serve as a vice chair there. And let's see what else here. And then my farm worker advocacy. Yes, I'm focusing on farm workers because we are always left out. Especially when COVID hit. They were left out from receiving PPE protection, personal protection equipment. And so, and I could not believe it because they're out there. They're the ones who are, providing food for us, right? They're feeding the U.S. They make our lives easy to just go to the market and buy our food. So the federal government, declared them essential workers, and they did not get the proper PPE or the information on how to protect themselves or about the risk, involved in their essential labor and access to healthcare. So to bring up awareness, as a member of the San Mateo County Democratic Central Committee, I submitted an urgent resolution to urging San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, State of California, legislature and Congress to protect farm workers during COVID and pesticide exposure with PPE. Then after that, created the and chaired the San Mateo County Democratic, Farm Worker Affairs Committee. So, it is to amplify the voices of farm workers, advocate for and achieve equity and access to resources and representation. So we hosted our public summit just this spring, which was an extension of the 2022 Farm Worker Roundtable with county representatives from Congress, state legislature, and Board of Supervisors, leaders of coast-side community-based organizations, farm workers, and their families. So the topics that we touched on is access to clean water. Access to clean water. Yes, people, there are farm workers who are not getting clean water, okay? And there's also a school in Pescadero that has not had potable clean water at all for over 25 years. And also we talked about the housing and the healthcare. So the summit, it came just after the deadly shooting, in January. And it really exposed the decades of inequities in the lives of farm workers. So yes, we had press there. We got the word out. So the Chronicle came. We even, Bay Area News. And it even made CNN International. Okay. So that was awesome. And that's the power of the press. So my other work, how I said that farm workers were not receiving PPE. So Alas in Half Moon Bay, they had to launch a project, Mama's Making Face Masks for farm workers to protect themselves. So we launched it, and there was plenty of press coverage from the Bay Area, and it also made national news at ABC News. And it was a wonderful program because people came and they provided not only the money, but they provided cloth, material, fabric, and there were people also from outside of San Mateo County asking for PPE for the face mask, because it was not only happening here in San Mateo County, also in state of California and the nation, that farm workers who were not receiving PPE. So how can that be? 2020, I mean, really. So it really exposed all the inequities. Okay, so here's some of the work that I've been doing here. And then, so because of our efforts, the launch of this new commission, the San Mateo County Farm Worker Advisory Commission, is due to the efforts of our work with the Farm Worker Affairs Committee, as well as the Farm Worker Affairs Coalition, a nonpartisan group that includes CBOs and county agencies. And this is the first Farm Worker Advisory Commission of its kind in the state. And so there you go. And okay, last but not least, so in 2019, I ran as an ADEM. It was so important for me to do this because watching Orange Face Trump, what was he was doing to immigrants seeking asylum, and just pursuing policies to strip the babies from their the parents' arms and separating families, and to just send them to inhumane detention camps. It just really I have to do something. I'm an ADEM. I'm here in ADEM. What can we do? So using my news skills, my journalism skills, my communication skills, I said, okay, I have to write. I went ahead and I initiated and led and co-authored 4 national resolutions. And it was against the citizen questions. on the U.S. census, which Trump said, oh, that, immigrants, undocumented people should not be counted. So, and then it was encouraging the, 2020 presidential candidates to prioritize immigration reform, and then opposing the discriminatory interpretation of public charge decision, and then as well as protect farm workers as essential workers. So this is just some of the work I've been doing and my passion. And thank you. And thank you. There. Phew. I got through it. Okay.
Again, I'm exhausted. That was incredible. So I encourage you all to take a deep breath, because I mentioned that I met Ruben over 20 years ago. And at that time in San Mateo County, it was very rare to have a Latino in any city or county government seat. And these three remarkable people are examples of how incredibly important it is for us to have people from different communities serving in a public space, because no one knows their story better than they know it, right? And so it's up to us, though, to be here, to be partners, and to say we're better together. And so does anyone have questions for our panelists? We have a few minutes left. And
what we'd like you to do is do a raise your hand so we can keep everybody in order. And I'll take a question if nobody else is in line, because one of the things I would like to ask is, Roxana, how do we get more young people actively involved? And I'm thrilled, I see you and I see Jorge, and I'm seeing lots of young people getting involved, but we need more. We need a tidal wave of youth getting everything moving, because I think that's the direction we need to go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susie, for that question. I always hear this, question being asked, and I think that there is a lot of young people that are even involved at a high school level, even at a elementary level. Teachers are teaching about government during humanities classes. So I see it personally in schools, that schools are talking about it, and young people are having opportunities for leadership opportunities in government. And I know, for example, in Redwood City, there's like youth commission and youth committees where young people are able to just join city staff and just provide their input. And Redwood City does a great job in providing youth listening sessions, and they partner with a bunch of nonprofits. And we are listening to us young people, and we get involved. How do we get involvement? Well, I think just providing, providing opportunities and space, and not just hearing our stories and just saying, okay, this is what I'm getting from that story, but actually providing like other opportunities. Like sometimes we want to lead, initiatives. Sometimes we speak up and we already know what we want to see, but yet we are being ignored just because our age. We have, we face age discrimination at a lot of times. And especially, I forgot to mention, but I was born and raised here, but my family is from El Salvador. So I consider myself as a Salvadorian American. And although I never been over there, I find a lot of young people here in our communities that are coming from Central America and also other countries. But we're seeing a trend, a lot of, I'm personally seeing it, a lot of refugees are coming from other places like Ukraine and Nigeria. So yes, young people, how to get them involved is a big question. So I think just continuing to provide like space and sometimes we know what we want to see, like I said, and sometimes we're not taken serious. So yeah, I'll just leave it. Thanks.
So let me give just a small response to that comment that we are entering a voter registration season, and students, excuse me, and students who are even too young to vote can help us with voter registration. And so we would eagerly have them be part of our team. So if you have any thoughts about, how we might reach out to those government teachers and others to help us with that, we would be happy to do that. And you need to know that you have a receptive audience here, that we are very active, we are very effective at DFA. And so we would like to, so if you have an initiative you need support with, just let us know.
All right, well, let's go on to the next. Ashley, you've got a question?
Not really a question. I want to take advantage of the opportunity to announce that at the next meeting of the San Mateo County Democratic Party Central Committee, following up with this Latino theme, we are having as our featured speaker Belinda Arriaga, who is the founder and executive director of ALAS, which Victoria talked about. It's a nonprofit that provides mental health and social services to farm workers and their families. And Victoria, as co-chair of the Farm Workers Affairs Committee at the Central Committee, will be introducing Belinda. So I thank Victoria for bringing us this great speaker. I look forward to it.
All right. Elsa, you're up next.
You're muted.
I did the video. Thank you, all three of you, so much. We just have so much depth from the three of you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to say more than anything, what can we do? And I just saw April Vargas's picture also. And I know April keeps talking with us at the DCC, particularly, I think, on the importance of joining with every entity that's working with the farm workers. And so tell us, please, what to do, what to join, etc. And I love Diana saying, keep us in mind. And then I had one specific question for Victoria was, didn't you say, I'm sorry, near the end, you talked about having worked nationally on a change in the questioning of the US Census. And I remember that questionnaire changing. Was that the thing that you had something to do with?
Well, it did get heard when we had the 2019 Democratic Conference here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Back then, Alex Padilla, he was the Secretary of State, and he endorsed it. He took it. Yeah, he took it. So it did have, our resolution helped. It did help.
And it helped actually make a change on the 2020 census itself.
Yeah.
Right.
To include everybody, to include regardless, because Trump was like, he didn't want, there was, as you remember, he didn't want people who are not documented to be included. And anyway, it was a mess. So we did our research. So I put this together, along with some other people as well. But I led it, and I did a lot of the research. So I use my journalism. I'm a news junkie, so I watch everything. I do, even Fox News. You have to.
Good.
You
Good.
have to.
But I love, to me, the headline or the finish line of that example is never don't do what you know needs to happen. And even if it's national or even if it's statewide, and you see this is a crying need, go for it.
You have to do it. You have to do something. Good trouble, right?
Yeah. Thank you for the example, Victoria.
Thank you.
All right, Gail, you're up next.
Yes, well, our social justice task force and the other task forces are gearing up with our presentation to our state legislators, which we hope to meet with in the coming months. So, and they do somewhat listen to our club. I think they actually do, because they get supported in a lot of ways by our club. So I hope that you will either email with us or even attend our social justice meetings and let us know how we can support the farm workers and other important issues of immigration, in this case at the state level, and then in the future also perhaps with our federal legislators. We are very happy and very interested to support your resolutions and your projects in any way that we can. So that's this coming Friday the 13th at 7 p.m. There will be a Zoom meeting at which I expect we will be discussing which issues we will be carrying when we meet.
Yeah, we're hoping to meet with our legislators in the November timeframe.
Right. Yes, that's the plan anyway, if it can be arranged. So we really are very interested in hearing from you, and I commend you on your work, which is just terrific and also quite amazing.
Do we have any other questions? Also, I see your hand up, but is that left from before?
I'm so sorry. Yes, it was left over. Apologies.
Okay. Oh, Flavia, you get your hand up.
Yeah, I believe Elsa asked the question, what can we do? And then that question was kind of overrun by the question on the census. So going back to that original question, I'm not sure if that was answered. Thank you.
So I will jump in here. I think for me personally, I would also say that you all can help by mentoring young people, talk to them about politics and local government. I always say politics affects everyone from the water we drink to the stop sign we may cross. So like these little things that, the traffic, these are, our ways, our issues that when we're with young people, we could educate them on, how our streets are so impacted by so many cars, why there's so much construction happening, why they're fixing the creek trail, why do we have highways being shut down? So I think education is like key, and that the more that we educate and about the little things, maybe why our neighborhood looks a different way compared to the other one. I think this is all we could all talk about this. We can all start conversations, about this to young people. Right now, I do know that some of the teachers at high school levels, especially the econ and gov teachers, which are seniors, they're teaching seniors, they're actually having mocks of registering to vote. And I think that's wonderful. So I see it in schools. We have great school districts in our county. So I really encourage you all to just, be okay with just talking to young people. I love my seniors. I actually used to help out at the adapted PE at CSM. So I met a bunch of veteran folks, and they hear me out, and I just love talking to my elderly folks. And I tell them, young people, we see you guys, we see the older folks as being wise. You guys have a lot of wisdom to share, so please share with us too.
Mm-hmm. And Roxana, before we go to other questions, if you have any environments that we can come to, that's the hardest part, is how do we get involved? How do we know where the kids will be to be able to have that conversation? Mm-hmm. So if there are gatherings that you can think of that we could come and talk about politics, because hey, that's what we do.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susie. There's, thankfully our county has a lot of community events that they put in place, and, they do have a lot of youth opportunities, like having all these listening sessions in parks, community, parks and recs. I think these are great places to, meet and organize something. I think it takes someone to lead the way as well. So if I know of any spaces that I'll be working on, I'll for sure get in touch with you all. So thank you
That'd be
for
great. All right.
So
And
I was gonna add something kind of old school, since I'm probably might be one of the oldest persons here, but over the years in East Palo Alto, what I've done is, and I would encourage everyone to do it. Sometimes we're a little shy, but really try to recruit people individually. We can identify people sometimes. We can tell they're into something. They're almost like, especially younger people, but it could be anybody. It's like they're almost waiting to be asked. And sometimes we miss opportunities. You know what? Hey, inviting them. We're doing this, you want to help, or you could learn this, or we need your help, that kind of stuff. So, we're a small community, but I have to say, even in our quote unquote regular commissions, we have a number of young people, which I feel like you might as well just get into the thicket of it. So recently I was talking to like a 20-year-old who was just started community college, and she's on the rent board. And I offered to meet with her, explain everything I knew, just encouraged her, right? So anyway, I would say that goes for all of us, whoever, obviously in this case, we're all Democrats. I'm a lifelong Democrat. You want to get them into the Democrat, but sometimes even if people are not necessarily party oriented, but they're on an issue, and then they get to find out the other stuff.
Yeah.
excellent. And Jorge, I did see your hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Oh, I was just going to further ask her if she had any advice on how to engage with as a fellow youth person, how I can better engage with the youth, because even I find it it's a struggle to get people to care about government, unfortunately. So I just want to know a little bit of what have been your challenges and what have been your successes.
Yeah, so for me, as I mentioned before, I also work for AbleWorks, and so I was part of the revamping of our financial education curriculum this last summer. So I was able to incorporate systems into this curriculum, and so I deliver the lessons at high school level to Econ Gov teachers, but also the students, and I made this curriculum, the lessons plans, to be very relevant to students. For example, I want them to take a look at the assets that they have in their communities, like parks and recs, libraries, where they could go for resources, because a lot of them, might not be aware of the power that they have. So my job as, Future Profits coach, their coach, is to empower them not only to be there and talk about information, but also give them tools for their toolbox, and for them to take initiative and take a look around their communities. And if they see something, like notice maybe this street has more liquor stores than the other side of town, then pay attention to that and start asking questions. So I tend to engage the youth that way. But I also know that we have wonderful community colleges in our county, and also a lot of good state schools like San Jose State, San Francisco State. And, when it comes to government, a lot of the professors, the faculty working there already, they're very strategic in the students that they bring inside the schools, and, to be classmates and to their programs. So a lot of them, have no understanding of government, at all. But, I think hearing everybody's experiences and kind of the knowledge that they have, they get to hear other perspectives. So I think it's just creating those strategic teams can go a long way. And I could keep on talking more and more, but I'll let others share things.
All right. Elsa, you've got another question?
That was, yes. I would like to propose that every person in DFA and Victoria, I think this is the way to take it to the DCC, to engage everyone on the DCC, as you were so eloquently saying in another meeting. I think everyone should adopt a high school. And in adopting it, go to the principal and then the history, civics, politics, or political science teachers, and offer to bring voter registration to their classes to teach anything about civics in general, although I think a lot of that the teachers are doing. But to, as Roxana, as you were so eloquently saying, to bring with you 3 examples, or 5 even, but 3 of what are the things that are going on right now actively in San Mateo County, as well as statewide and nationally, that absolutely do affect young people's lives, and tie a link between who they vote for, who they elect, and I mean, something like ALAS, what group, and like Fix in San Mateo counties, what groups can they also join, nonpartisan, that are working hard on making good things happen, and things that are relevant for them that they can relate to right away. So I'd love us to adopt a project that gets every single one of us assigned to 1 to 3 high schools, actually. And once you start that, you get to know the faculty so that year after year, you can keep doing that. And a lot of them are very engaged on it. And I know the county, let's see, yeah, the county schools tried setting that up throughout, and it is in some high schools, but it's not in all of them. Anytime you can help a teacher, given that they are so flat out, it's very helpful. So Victoria, what do you think of having everybody on the DCC adopt a high school?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
So
it has to be strategic. It has to be strategic, though.
Well,
How does it look like? You know, how's it going to look like?
Oh, I have 5 bullet points I've written down here. I won't drag everybody through now, but I'll send them to you.
And the only thing I'll tell you is that it might not be something that a Democratic club or the DCC can do, because the schools may want it to be a nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan.
Okay.
That's right.
But
it's not as easy as what you're thinking.
Oh, I do know. I've talked to Ann Campbell about this, who used to be the school superintendent for the county. But let's take off our Democratic hats.
Right.
Let's just make sure we who happen to be, I mean, we're all together in a certain meeting. That's why a la meeting students where they are. We just happen to be all here together, but we are all activists and we care about people voting.
Mobilize them to vote. Mobilize them to care. You don't have to,
not as Democrats, as
just mobilize them to get civically engaged.
Right.
And we do know most of them will end up voting that way.
Yeah. All right. We'll go on to Bill and then Gail, and we've got to end because we're about out of time.
Sorry to come in on this a little late, but a couple points. Number one, we have precedent right now. We have a track record. Some members of this organization, including myself, are also members of other organizations such as People Power. And we've been doing voter registration to schools for a number of years now in the local area. And we can build off of that. Also, I'm working right now with the Southern County League of Women Voters, and we already have in place strategies for 2 major voter registration programs in Redwood High School in December, at Sequoia High School. In January, we're actually going to be meeting with all 500 of the, I guess, the senior class or whatever it is. And a number of those folks are either going to be 18 or about to 18. And we all know we can start registering people at 16. So the other point I wanted to make was I was also recently involved with voter registration out at College of San Mateo. We had a very successful event out there. I don't know how many people we registered that day, but we had close to 75 to 100 contacts, just setting up a table and interacting with students as they walked through the mall. So I do think that I think it's really good we continue with the high schools. I'm also thinking we should expand that into the community colleges, and People Power has done that in the past couple of years up at Skyline. So we have some track record there. I think, CSM is a place the league's been, and Kenyatta is another place that is, if I can use the word, fertile ground, because that's a community college that I don't know has had as much voter registration going on. So that would be a perfect one for us because it's right in our backyard. The other thing I wanted to mention was in going into the high schools, a number of the high school, I substitute in a lot of the high schools, so I got to know the schools from the inside. A number of the high schools that particularly have higher percentages of certain ethnic groups. For example, I was up at Westmore, and the Burmese student body had a Burmese club. Sequoia has had in the past and may have a very active Hispanic club, as has MA, Woodside in the past, places like that. So that's another target to look at, and most definitely the government classes in the local high schools. And it's good to do the registration now, but it's also good for us to target just before they graduate, around April and May, before they leave high school, because at that point, a lot of kids have just turned 18, and then you've got the elections coming up that following fall. And then it would also be good, we're going to try to register as many as we can before the election coming up in March. And the other thing I wanted to say was that I'm encouraged, and there are active efforts now to get younger people more involved in electoral politics. We know James Coleman is a very young man who's on the council up in South City. We have Elmer, hope I'm saying his name right, his last name I forget. But Elmer's in Redwood City, and Lizette is in Redwood City. That's two notable people in their 20s, I believe, that are getting involved. Now, we haven't had Hispanic younger people like that, to my knowledge, on the city council until recently. So those are some things I'm encouraged about, and that I think we should continue to, keep this at the forefront. Really good comments tonight, really good comments from Elsa about this, and I think there's some ways we can get way more involved in it. Thank you.
All right. And Gail, you've got the last question, and we need to wrap up.
Well, I would just like to ask for a repetition, if it's appropriate, of your activities around financial education. Had some contacts recently with low-wage workers who I know don't have a lot of money, and some of their spending decisions I completely don't understand at all. If they took that money and put it in the stock market, they actually could invest in the stock market with the amount that they tell me they're spending, like for a purebred dog. And it's like, doesn't anybody tell them that if they can get some cash together, it will grow? I hope this is happening. And tell me that it is.
Yeah, it is. That's why AbleWorks Financial Education exists. And I know that in other states, there has been a lot of bills coming down the pipeline to local government about, for kind of like having school districts be able to teach financial education. If it's not the teachers and the econ and gov departments, then maybe they could hire organizations like nonprofits, and we're able to deliver those lessons. But yes, I always tell the students that it does not matter how much money you make or how much money you receive, you bring in. What matters is how much money are you keeping for you, and you're paying yourself first. So that's like the message that I always give young people. But
yeah, maybe it could be in the math department too.
Well, and that's a terrific place to end tonight. And I want to thank all three of our speakers. This has been so much knowledge, and I've just learned so much, and I really am encouraged, let's get more involved, and we can share knowledge we have. Great. I would really like to be able to see us do more things that we can be helping our community. Thank you.
So just let me say thank you, Victoria, Roxana, and Ruben. You know how excited I was about all three of you being with us tonight, and so that excitement was, well, was well rewarded. And just the final note: we're more powerful together. And so, if there's anything that we can do as an organization,
Yeah.
DFA is here to support you. And so we want to do that. Anytime you have an initiative you want us to support, let us know.
Absolutely.
We'll
Thank
be
you,
coming to
everyone.
you. We'll be emailing. I'll be emailing you guys. Yes, yeah. Here's what we're working on the coast side. Yeah, on the coast side.
Right, everyone, have a good night. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Susie,
Good night.
thank you
Good night,
so much.
guys.
Susie
Bye-bye.
sends out a newsletter twice a month that includes often things that people can do. And that goes to way more people than the people on this screen. So keep that in mind also.
How can we get on that newsletter?
Where can we get on this newsletter?
Susie?
Put your email into the chat here, and we'll
Okay.
put you in.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, we'd love to. And I will make sure that I write that down.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a nice
you.
night, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night.
Buenas noches.
Thank you. Buenas noches.
All right. Next up on our agenda, Nancy's going to give us a little update on the Coalition for a Safer San Mateo County. And this is the coalition that is of all the 30 or so groups in San Mateo County working on sheriff's oversight.
Thanks, Susie. And it's actually 37 groups. The impetus for the effort towards sheriff oversight was really Chinadu Wakobe's killing by sheriff deputies using tasers with no accountability. And the second thing was the fact that at the time, 2 years ago, the sheriff was one of the few sheriffs left that was turning people over to ICE immigration. So a bunch of us came together and looked at that. We did a lot of outreach. We did like 55 presentations over the last couple of years. And that's how we got the 37 organizations, including Democracy for America and the Dems and most of the other Dem clubs as well. But interestingly, we also went to cities and we got the cities who endorsed us, who voted at their city council, almost all of them unanimously, to endorse oversight, was East Palo Alto, Half Moon Bay, Portola Valley, Redwood City, and San Mateo, and the North Fair Oaks Community Council, together constituting 1/3 of the county's population. So you would think this is a really good idea whose time has come. And a year ago, the Board of Supervisors last November voted unanimously at the time just to ask a subcommittee of Supervisor Pine and Slocum to go off and explore a model of oversight that included what we wanted, which was a civilian oversight board and a professional inspector general. And so the subcommittee went out looking and doing some work, and they have not said one word publicly since then, not a word from the Board of Supervisors. Just so different than the Measure K, which they put out all kinds of surveys and they put websites and they had listening sessions all around the county. So one may wonder what's going to happen. Well, October 4th, the board is going to have a public study session. It's a Tuesday public hybrid meeting in person in the board chambers and online like always, but it's not a regular board meeting day. It's just a special day for this. I mean, we don't know what time yet. They have invited Jim Lawrence from Fix and San Mateo County to present for 10 minutes. We've asked them to also give another 10 minutes to community members, some of whom spoke at the Chinadu Remembrances, who have stories. We wanted 3 community members to have 10 minutes altogether to speak. And in the meantime, people have said a lot of things. They said, well, we now have a good sheriff. We don't really need oversight. So we have to remind the supervisors that oversight is not about the person, it's about the office. Everybody else has oversight. That's what we were saying before. Every other institution has oversight, and as do businesses. And businesses have outside auditors, no matter how good the CEO is. And we need to remind them the parameters. It is not oversight unless it's set up independently of the sheriff's office. That means it is not the sheriff's listening program that's set up by her office and meets every quarter in the 3 parts of the county. That's a great group, but it's not oversight. It's not independent. And it also has to be oversight. Again, that sheriff's new care committees don't have any authority to ask questions, to get answers, to get data. They don't have a mandate to make recommendations, to make public reports. They're just there, listening to what the sheriff has to say and asking an occasional question and getting an occasional answer. So we're trying to tell the board, you need to have real oversight. Don't try to pussyfoot around. It doesn't count if it's not real oversight. Independent with authority. And the third thing is, it needs to have a budget. There's talk